a few items for about half an hour, and then we will provide everyone that's here and online an opportunity to provide input to us to help us make our pest management plans better. So, and I just want to start by saying I was expecting that, a fairly big crowd. It's decent, but I just want to remember that this is an emotional topic, and as we've probably all seen on some of the online posts and things like that, people are very passionate about this, and I just appreciate that if everybody could be kind to each other, respect people's opinions. I'd like this to be a safe space so that anybody can stand up and express whatever their opinion is, and they'll be heard and listened to. And that includes me. I will also be making sure that I am respectful to everybody who asks any questions here today. And just a personal note. So the picture you see up on the screen here, that is my backyard. And that is my organic garden right underneath the power line that services my neighborhood. So I just want to set the stage. There's no one in Nelson Hydro that wants to widespread spray pesticides in the rights of way. So just want to make sure that we are all clear on it. And for the pest management plans don't say that, but there's some room to improve what we do say so that it is clear and so that people understand what it's meant to do and how it supports the community and what we and your local hydro utility. I've mentioned it before, so we do want to make our pest management plans better, and we are open to feedback. So keep that in mind as you're providing your input. We are taking notes. Casey and Neil are both going to jot things down as people make suggestions and identify concerns. We're going to take those notes and we're going to take those away, and we're going to try and make our plans better. And then I know there was confusion about the input, and I'll talk a bit about that sort of in terms of how the regulatory process and how we got here. But we're required to put 30 days notice in our postings in the newspaper, and of course, we put in the newspaper several times, so that gets confusing. There is no restriction on how long we can do that, but we think that December 15th is a reasonable time for us to gather the input. People get to hear what we have to say here. You have time to get to our Let's Talk site and learn a bit more, read the documents, and then provide us with more input by December 15th so that we can collect all that and start working on updating the plan. So how did we get to where we are? So our management plans, our regulatory requirement. I'm sorry, I'm standing right in your way here. So Jillian, if I stand back here, can you hear me?
I can clear now.
Problem is I can't read my notes. You're not going to hear. Jillian, can you hear me okay if I'm back here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can hear you. Doing that. Okay, great. All right. So we filed 2 plans with the Ministry of Environment before. They are standard sort of form that we filled out. This is what we do to fulfill our requirements, and they were posted in the same manner as you saw recently in the newspaper, and we received 0 feedback in the first 2 times. So we fully admit that we were treating this as an administrative process. We were just trying to make sure that we were complying with the regulatory obligation to have a pest management plan that outlined for anybody who's interested in what we would use to manage our rights of way, our homes and our stations, to comply with that, including all of the mechanical means, the cultural means, the bio options, as well as chemical pesticides, which I think is what everybody is most interested in, is about the use of pesticides in our rights. That's the feedback that we've got so far. So I apologize that we didn't roll that out well, but historically we have rarely used pesticides. I went back the 10 years that we've had the pest management plan in place, and we've only used it twice in our substations, which are fully fenced and on Nelson, city of Nelson property, in order to control the weeds that are in that area, which is a safety hazard for us. We need to keep those clean, and I can talk, you know, that's the background of what got us here today. I talked about the regulatory, so just show this slide just to kind of give you an idea. There's a whole list of references in the pest management plans to talk about sort of, you know, what regulations we're trying to comply with. But essentially, this topic is heavily regulated, and we need to be able to, you know, provide proof that we are following all the regulations. So that's why we do that, and that includes, you know, working with the Central Caribbean Invasive Species Society around invasive species, because we as an obligation to manage an invasive species within our rights of way. Okay, so I admit we didn't do a great job of this. The integrated pest management regulations that have very prescribed wording, they say this is exactly what you need to do in order to engage the public, and this is exactly what you need to say, and these are the, you know, the size and the shape and the font and the words that you need to say in those advertisements. And we all the rules right to the left. We were just, as I said, doing an administrative job, trying to get this out there. We also reached out to all First Nations in the prescribed manner. So every First Nation that has indicated that they have an interest or land claim in this area, which I believe there is 14 or 15, we reached out to all of them and asked for their feedback. They received the pest management plans to review and received feedback from 3 or 4 of them, all of which said, no concerns here. A couple said, we just want to remind you that water is important to us and that you should be taking care of the land when using DMP. We didn't do a good job. We didn't anticipate sort of the, you know, work sector. We didn't anticipate the misinformation about sort of, you know, aerial spraying and spraying all over rights of way, things like that. And we should have. You know, we were just focused on, as some of you already know, we have a significant rate increase in the rural area and a pretty significant rate increase for the city's residents as well. But we're focused on other things, and we're just kind of going through the motions to try and make sure that we were compliant with the regulations. So I apologize for that, and that's why we are here today, to try and improve that.
Can I quickly say something very quickly? You're noticing in the newspaper 3 or 4 times now, there is a typo, and the typo is the phone number, which is pretty important. There's also no email address that people can respond. There's a physical address, and that's it. So
Noted. Yeah,
it would be nice to have an email and the correct phone number.
fair enough. Yeah, but people have been able to reach out, so we've been able to get that correct. So that's been good. I'll just touch it on a little bit, because the pest management plan isn't just about spraying pesticides. I mentioned that before. So it's about managing our rights of way. It's about managing our facilities, and that with respect to the environment. And so the majority of our vegetation management work, which is contained in that pest management plan, it talks about mechanically. So this is, you know, mostly, you know, brushing and trimming and you mentioned mowing. I don't think we do a whole lot of mowing in this area. But most of it, you see the teams out there working away, mechanical part of our management side. So for all of that, we certified utility armors because they're working around power lines. And we, you know, thing we want is for a tree to hit a power line and get somebody who's working on the power line. And if we were to use any pesticides, and the couple of times that I talked about within our areas, we must use a certified applicator. So this isn't just you know, one of our staff going out there buying some Roundup from the local hardware store and spraying it. This is, you know, we have to get certified applicators. We know what they're doing, you know, the safety precautions and all the details. And how they do that is all spelled out in the integrated pest management plans that we put out as a draft. So all those details are contained in in that plan, so that there is no question of if you hire someone to do that, what they have to do and how they need to do it. And we have reviewed to make sure that it is all fully completed with all sorts of regulations, including the health and safety regulations. There's a note there, invasive species. So that's a tricky one, because the feedback that we've been getting is that for certain things, knotweed is an example, that foliar application is the best way to manage that, some of those species. So we included that as part of our pest management plan, so that we have tools in our toolbox if we need to address it. This is just to give you an idea of our vegetation management. So for the last 2 years, each dog represents a prescription. Usually it's like a half a dozen, 3 dozen trees. Sometimes it's a single tree, if it's a hazard tree, but it's usually an area that we have asked a certified utility arborist to manage. We did not do any application of any kind of pesticides or any kind of chemical management or rights of way in 2024 and 2025. As you can see here, we did a lot of tree trimming. We spend about $850,000 a year on arborists to maintain our rights of way. We tried to cut back in years past, and our reliability gets really bad and people get really upset about that. So in the last 5 years, we have been running at that $850,000 range for our vegetation management.
Can you just quickly tell the color of the dots, please?
There's a legend here. It's but generally, the green just tells us that's been done. So let's maybe start it off. So the blue is we have our arborist go out and he identifies areas that are needing to be managed because they're either touching or about to touch or power lines. Then they assign it. So that's the red. Then the crew, when the crew is out there, they complete it. This is all geographically sort of located. So they once they complete that, they record that work is done. Then we have somebody go and check to make sure that they did exactly what we asked them to do. They didn't miss some trees, or they did back far enough to be able to last for a few years. And then there's a few other sort of things that sort of like urgent things that come up if somebody notices a tree just about to fall on a power line, or maybe if a tree has fallen on the power line, we will report that in this black and the brown. So this is just our management tool for managing our rights of way where our power lines.
But has this all been done? Are these things that you've done this year, you've applied pesticides to some of these areas?
There's no pesticides applied in 2024 or 2025 to any of these areas.
So it says assigned.
This is mechanical. This is utility arborists. Utility arborists.
Yeah.
Cutting trees down and brushing the rights of way to make sure that the trees that they're not touching the power lines. Okay. All right. So why do we do that? All this vegetation management? Well, primarily, we need to make sure it's safe, both for ourselves, they're like our staff who are going to be working around these, and for the public. We don't want anybody touching a tree that's touching a power line. That's a major issue. Now, reliability is also important to this community. We've heard that loud and clear. It's also important to the BC Utilities Commission, who directed us back in 2021 to increase our vegetation management budget to start to address the reliability. So we've been doing all this mechanical work to try and make sure that we're safe, reliable, affordable electricity. So that's the trick. We got to try and make sure, because people are concerned about rates. We want to make sure that we have options to be able to manage our rights of way and our. So that's what our integrated pest management plan tries to achieve. It gives a list of options for us to be able to do that work. We lean heavily on the mechanical, but there's also some other options, such as using cultural through our plantings, specific species under trees, which we do in town. It's harder to do out in rural areas, but we try and sort of manage that way. We have options in there that allow us to do bio treatment, which is like beneficial insects and things like that. we've never done it. I don't have any, we don't have anybody in staff that has an expertise, but it's in there as an option for us to be able to control. And then at the bottom of the list is being able to apply chemical pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, they're all kind of part of the same thing to be able to manage. We have, I mentioned before, we have to be able to manage our invasive species and noxious weeds, vines that climb up on poles and things like that. So we need to make sure those are clear. And then our substations are probably our most important thing that we need to focus on for the safety of our workers is we need to make sure that if there's ever a fault earlier that vegetation that's there isn't going to affect the zone because it will it can and will cause an issue. So we need to keep those substations absolutely clear of vegetation. Right, since we put out the notices, we've seen a little bit of feedback from on Facebook. We've got 50 or 60 emails that we received and some feedback through our own stock forage.
I'll just check. I hadn't really got disturbed. I didn't get disturbed.
Okay, these are kind of some of the high level themes that we heard from you. Put money at the top. People were accusing us, well, sure, black men's with money and that, money, the root of all evil. It's, sort of, it is something that we have to deal with. Like the world has a hard time going around without money. We need to be able to, fund our operations. The way we do that is through rates. So decisions that we make on how to manage our rights of way directly impact them. So, it is something that we recognize. Nobody's making any money on our vegetation. There's nothing hydros. The contractors make a profit, but Nelson Hydro is not making any money on this and isn't trying to sort of do extra things just to try and bring in more ratepayer money. So we are just trying to cover our costs to do that work. Some people were talking about, well, the pest management plans, the way it's written, it gives you a carte blanche to be able to spray around the rights of way and anywhere else. And I don't think it gives us that much leeway. It does have, clear sort of like, restrictions and guidelines and things that were in there, but it does outline that we have the ability to be able to spray. Now, there's nothing there about aerial spraying. There's nothing there about sort of mechanical sprayers going on. We do include backpack spraying and handgun spraying, injection into tree stumps or things like that in order to try and stop the regrowth of plants. Yeah, there's no intention for it to be carte blanche. So if there's language that we can change within the pest management plans to make that clear so that it gives people some sort of reassurance about what we are or are not doing, we're happy to receive that feedback. People talked about human health and water health. The amendment plans talk about sort of reserving the like 100 meters back from any ALR listed properties. Talks about offsets in for water courses and no pesticide zones, no treatment zones in the plan to try and address that. But if there's something different that people think that we need to add in order to make it clear, let's have a conversation about that. Similarly, wildlife and pollinator health, it covers that. There's a whole section on the environment and how we protect that in the management plan. And there's a number of different things that we've said that we would do if we were going to be applying pesticide. People said edible pesticide of any kind anywhere in the area. Okay, heard, understood. Let's and then others talked about the hierarchy of controls, like why what's the order? Why are you using pesticides when you could do it? Well, the integrated pest management plan for Mr. Rights of Way does have a hierarchy in there. It's kind of listed in order of preference, and there's mechanical, or he's talked about, there's cultural, there's biotreatment, there's and lastly, there's pesticide use, but we need to make that clear in there, that it is kind of our, option of last resort. Let's have the conversation with that. And then the lack of engagement, I already talked about that. I apologize for that. I'm hoping that we can make up for that, having a conversation today about this topic. All right, so if you have had a chance to look at our Let's Talk site, or seeing some of the information that we can put out online, you'll see that we've, as a team, like, we're not a big team, so, there's more of us and management and us and hydro. We said, okay, well, what can we do to address some of these issues? So we put some options out there and people sort of think about these. So the first one is, well, maybe we just keep or rewrite the rights of way pest management plan so that we're only allowed to use chemical treatment for invasive species. As I mentioned before, it's something that, CKIS is encouraging us to have in a tool in our toolbox to be able to deal with issues that they struggle with, so that we're not promulgating it. There's challenges with, to mechanically cut down certain species, it just spreads and grows and gets even bigger, and that's the problem. So these are the sort of things that we're saying, hey, keep some of these tools in your toolbox, and you're going to address this if the need arises. The second option, private specific chemicals from being used. So a lot of the online discussion was around glyphosate, and I recognize there's a lot of discussions sort of I think there was an article in the CBC this morning about Prince George and the use of glyphosate up there. So do we want to limit or eliminate the use of glyphosate? But keep a few of those other options so that for specific reasons, like our invasive species or others, that we can still manage the issues that are being to be addressed. And then finally, is that's it. We don't want any pesticides at all. Remove any of that from our pest management plan. And then I've got number 4. What else? What haven't we thought of? What are options that other people may have? I was talking to Axel earlier as the bee inspector. He's got lots of experience in things like this. So I am no pesticide expert. I'm open to hearing from everybody else what we can do. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. I said it'd be half an hour. Look at that. We're pretty darn close. Let's, as I said at the beginning, appreciate it. Let's try and keep the conversation respectful. I want to hear from people. I want to hear your opinions. I want everybody's opinion to be valued equally. And think about these questions, like, do the options that we've come up with address the concerns people have? Like, is your voice being heard in one of the options? And if not, is there another option that we should be considering? And then if you have any suggestions of what else we could be doing that's within our scope. So I have no control over what Health Canada approves or doesn't approve. I don't want to start a discussion or have a debate about the toxicity of certain chemicals over others. Not my expertise, not my responsibility. It is the federal government's role to test, analyze, approve, and can't be used. What I can control is what we put in our integrated pest management plan, and the words that surround that, and what we actually do in integrated management. Those are the sort of things I can control. So I'm looking for some feedback from people. So yeah, I'm going to alternate. I'll have to just switch over here to so I can see Jillian, so I know when she's there. But I'll probably alternate between questions at the hall here and questions online. So Marlene, I see you got you're not actually not. I said questions. This is a discussion. I don't have all the answers, so please help me out, Marty.
Yeah, it's Scott. I came in a little bit late and I did hear quote about 850,000 a year to spend on the chemical treatment. And just for everybody's benefit here, I'm curious as to, with the pesticide option, there's got to be a cost figure, an annual cost figure for the cost of those pesticides. Also, for the application, so the kinds of things you're targeting, like knotweed, that requires stem injection right at the root collar for a 5 or 6 year period to be effective. So that's a very costly endeavor. So is black locust treatment with stem injection. So I just would like to know the costs that are with the pesticide option being fully costly. So
I have no answer to that because we haven't done it. When we were talking about sort of, like, as we were renewing this pest management plan and, sort of just to kind of step back. So yesterday we got a, supplemental question from the BC Utilities Commission from our application for a rate increase, saying, what are you doing to bring the cost of vegetation management down? And so this has been on the line by myself, Neil, and others about sort of like, okay, is there something we can do? One of the things we thought was, well, maybe we should do some test plots to see what that would be, that we would be able to gather enough information to see if that would actually be a cost saving or a cost adder to that. But we haven't started, we haven't thought about what that test plot would look like to gather that information, but I have no information about what that would look like. The pesticide use is in the plan to give us options to be able to sort of investigate.
right, there is certainly information in the literature about using some of these herbicides, oil to control with some of the problem species that are going to the draft. So I would say check the literature first. There's even some local treatments that have been done in the trail area that you could piggyback on. So I would say before you go into pilot treatments that you do that. But I understood that there was a figure in your upcoming annual budget for pesticide purchase. No, there's nothing like that.
Nothing at all. There is nothing. We have a budget for vegetation management.
Okay.
If we did anything like that, it would come out of that budget.
Okay.
But it is the same budget that we have put in for all the mechanical treatment. But there is no line item for pesticide management, no plan to do any pesticide management in right of ways. Just an idea that maybe that's a way that we might be able to sort of like try and manage those costs as people are asking us to do. Vegetation management, unfortunately, is one of those things that is like the easiest thing for us to like cut the budget of in order to be able to sort of like reduce impact on rates. But there's a cost to that in liability, safety, and other things. So, we're trying to maintain that budget, but how can we do more with less is one of the reasons why we left these items. As I said, our integrated pest management plans have been around for over 10 years, but we've never done any right of way pest management. So, thanks, Marlene. I'm going to see if there's someone online. Did you get that, Casey? Sure. Yeah, that was a good suggestion with going to trail. Jillian, have you got a question online?
Yes, we do. We have a question from Mariette. Mariette, you can unmute yourself now. Mariette, would you unmute yourself?
I believe I just did. Thank you. This is a
Perfect.
new technology for me. So I'm a residential customer and I became interested when I saw the notices and I tried to read the pest management plan and there's too many terms that are not defined. So I really cannot apply it to my local situation to understand how this is going to affect me. Let me give you an example. Right of way. It's too broad. It doesn't tell me whether or not you're including the right of way probably on my property between the street level utility pole and the utility pole that's closer to my house. Are you going to, in this plan or ever, going to come onto my property and deal with the vegetation underneath the utility poles that are on my property? Right now, there's a hedge there, and I wouldn't want to come back one day and found out that my hedge has been cut down to the ground or sprayed with anything. So where are the limits of your plan?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Thank you very much for asking that. Just to clarify here, so we would never go on personal property to do anything mechanical or chemical treatment on private property without the owner's permission. And we would engage with that person and say, listen, we think that tree is a hazard. So we would like to cut it down if you give us permission. So that's kind of how our mechanical process works. We would treat chemical in the same way.
You're breaking up. Can't hear you.
Are not responsible. Okay, sorry. So Nelson Hydro is not responsible for managing the vegetation on private property. It is the owner's responsibility to manage that, especially the secondary lines that come from the nearest pole to your house. So those are your responsibility as customers to maintain adequate clearance and management of any trees or vegetation that's growing up into those. But if there is, say, one of our primary lines that was crossing over your property, and for whatever reasons, we don't have a statutory right of way that allows us a legal access to be able to maintain that line on there, then we would definitely approach you and have a conversation before we did anything that encroached on your property.
Okay, so again, we have language issues. You refer to secondary lines, and that's not a term the average residential homeowner understands. If I live on a rural road, a residential road, and there's a utility line that runs along that road, what do you do to clear trees along that? I don't know where my property boundary is, so telling me you wouldn't come on my property is not yet clear. And I hope I'm speaking for others when I ask these questions to better understand what is the area that is covered by this plan. Is it only lines that run down Highway 3A, or is it lines that run down all the residential streets? And are those on private property, or are those on Nelson or RDCK property? And will you just come down those streets and do vegetation trimming or application of pesticides?
Yeah, so just for everybody's clarification, so most of our power lines are along Ministry of Transport rights of way, so down roadways, along roadways. So those are areas where we have the ability to trim and manage. If there's anything that was encroaching on our power lines that was from on a private land reaching in over, that's when we would engage customers for any kind of tree trimming, things like that. The secondary lines that I talked about are the line from the nearest pole to your house. Those are secondary lines, and we are not responsible for that. Whereas everything else, we need to maintain that. And the reason is that there's a big difference between those. Our primary lines are 25,000 volts, whereas our secondary lines are much lower. There's less of a hazard, and it also means it's on your private property, so you're responsible for taking care of it. And as I said, we are not treating any of our rights of way with any chemicals currently. No intention to do that, but we're open to discussion around that today. Okay, I think I'm ready for a question from the room here. Yeah, so
Why would you change the master plan from, in words, it not use spray? And I think that there's, public, opinion that would support that, not using glyphosate, for example. Why don't you want to change that simply to decrease your cost or what? Because I think that we are, I think a lot of people would be concerned about chemical spraying. So it seems like we don't do that right now. So why would there be a movement to change that?
Yeah, so again, a pest management plan is not changing. We've had glyphosate in that plan for the 10 years that it existed. So we just carry on this year. Why would we change? We talked a little bit about it. So cost is one thing. It's like, is there a better, more cost-effective way to manage certain hazards? It's not, we're not talking about entire rates. We're talking about specific pockets of areas that are maybe difficult to do mechanically or invasive species that we need to manage and trying to get those and manage those properly. That's why we would do chemical treatment. That's for those, like, cutting stumps and injecting. And as Marlene said, I mean, it's a lot of work to do that kind of thing. So I'm not sure that it's the silver bullet that's going to drop our vegetation management cost from $850,000 down to $500,000 like that. But there may be some opportunities. I don't know. It's a tool in our toolbox, and that's why it's there. We just didn't remove it.
Right. I mean, it makes sense if you're using it in specific things like in the website, it describes how it's using it on those little pieces of property where you've got transformers, et cetera, and enclosed. That makes good sense.
Thank you. Jillian, have you got another question online?
I don't have a question per se, though a request has been made, Scott. If you could please have repeat the question that is being asked of you in the room. So our online attendees are having difficulty hearing when someone's not close to the mic what the question is. They hear you answering, but they don't know what the question. So if you could repeat that, that'd be very helpful.
Thanks for the reminder of proper hybrid meeting etiquette. I should have been doing that to start. So thank you very much, and I appreciate that. Okay, I'll take a question here. I think, yeah, Susan, right?
Should I? Okay, I do have a question with regard to page 33 of the pest management plan. You have said that you may not be able to speak about toxicity, but that's really at the heart of all of this, unfortunately. We have here a chart of minimum water protection measures that is distances away from domestic and agricultural bodies of water, which I have to say is rather shocking. These are minimum distances, and we are talking about glyphosate. Maybe we should be clear, first of all, do you mean glyphosate or Roundup? Because there is a difference.
Okay, so I need to repeat the question. So Susan's asked, she's looking at page 33. So those of you who are looking at the pest management plan, and we do have a couple of copies. I thought you were floating around. If you didn't want them, or if you wanted to look it up on your phone, if you're so inclined. But she's specifically looking at the restrictions around use of different pesticides that are included in the plan to protect waterways and bodies of water and other things. And so let me just sort of get there. So those numbers come straight out of whatever regulation that we are required to follow. So those are copied and pasted into there as the minimum distances that we have been told are what is required by Health Canada to be able to do those. So
they are shockingly low.
And
I do find that I'm appalled. You have Nelson Hydro has glyphosate applications 2 meters, no treatment zone from non-fish bearing water. Non-fish bearing water still has value. And I believe that other organisms can live in that water. We can even have tadpoles and other species. So where does this come from? I understand that this is a cut and paste job, but this This is not acceptable.
It is not up to Nelson Hyder to set those limits. That is something that, you know, if you want to talk to Health Canada about, in terms of the studies or anything like that, this is what they have said are safe distances and what the certified applicators are required to follow.
I guess that takes care of my question, but the fact is that is this only because you are being compliant with this, that these distances will be maintained? Will it be possible to work to another standard, perhaps a higher standard? Because I do not believe that only fish-bearing water has value. There is also no meters here for non-fish-bearing water at any time of the year for a temporary freestanding body of water, which I guess you could say in layman's terms could be just a humble puddle. But if you look at wildlife and if you look at their behavior, you will find, even with domestic dogs, they will drink out of those puddles. And I think that I find this shocking. And I understand that this is a cut and paste job, which is why this PMP is so wanting by way of being community specific. We need things which are talking about our own communities. My comments here have to be perhaps specific to where I live, which is Harrah Proctor. We have between 20 and 25 farm establishments, and that has been since the last PMP, between 20 and 2025. We've had a resurgence of people coming, younger people coming to the land, older people mentoring with that as well. Small scale industry, that's not to consider all of the other private gardens that people have, and they grow some quantities of food. Not to mention an apiarist. We have also our riparian areas, and then we have, of course, parks and bodies of water, and the list does go on. I can mention all manner of things, but the density of this along a stretch of road, all the side roads included, is all of 15 kilometers. And I do worry about some, if any, spraying impinging upon one of those properties. And that would be too much.
Thank you, Susan. Jillian, do you think that everybody heard what Susan had to say, or do I have to try and repeat that?
No, I could hear fine. She was very clear. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, we can amend the PMP to a higher standard. We just can't go below the minimum. And as I said, you know, this was an administrative procedure. We had someone look at the current regs and make sure that our PMP was meeting all the current regulations that are specified by Health Canada and all the other regulators that are listed on the slide that I had. And just in terms of your comments about Harrah Proctor, I believe most of Harrah Proctor is actually ALR. And our PMP specifically says that we don't, the ALR is a no treatment zone.
Some of those farms aren't in the ALR. Not all of them are.
Okay, and again, you know, we would address that. So I'm gonna go to see if anybody's online. Jillian?
Yes, we have Cheryl Graham has a question. Cheryl, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Scott. And for those of you maybe who don't know me, I'm the RDCK Area E Director. So I just wanted to touch base on, can you hear me?
If you could speak a little bit louder, that would be helpful.
Oh, crap.
I've got it loud
Okay,
as
sorry,
we'll go here.
Okay, I'm on an iPad on this because I'm reading on a different computer. Scott, could you go over the regulations on notification to residents if a herbicide or pesticide was to be sprayed?
Yeah, so that's something that's in our PMP. So the question is about notification before treatment. And so that's outlined in our pest management plans, and it's open for discussion as to whether it's adequate. But what the regulations say is, and actually, I wonder, Jillian or Neil, do you guys want to answer that? Maybe, because I know you guys have the things right in front of you, you could quote directly from.
Well, maybe I'll try first. It's Neil Dermody. I'm the operations and line manager. One of my accountabilities is vegetation management. So, and Jillian, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the PMP, the pest management plan, stipulates that the minimum engagement or notification is 3 days. What we've done with our mechanical brushing for vegetation management is, depending upon the size and the area, we generally like to give at least 2 weeks notice if we're able. So we could definitely, were we to contemplate the application, we would definitely engage the public in the area and give as much notice as practicable. Does that sound about right, Jillian?
Yes, yes. The Integrated Pest Management Act and regulations of BC do specify a minimum of 72 hours notice in advance of application. That doesn't mean it's adequate. It's just that is the law. Yeah.
Supplemental, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
So how would that notification happen? Like, how are the residents going to be notified?
Neil, I can continue on. I have the information in front of me.
If you
So,
would, thank you, Jillian.
yeah, the notifications can occur through various means. Community signage, newspaper, radio advertisement, or social media. So just like we do our vegetation management, our power outages, we could do the sandwich boards just as easily. And they're all, the Integrated Pest Management Act and regulations do have, as they do, templates for notification as well, in terms of what needs to be included on public notifications, what chemicals are being used, when the dates are going to be applied. There's a whole series of requirements that must be included and provided to the public within that notification that I can't recall off the top of my head.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks
So
for those questions, Cheryl.
can I just add a final request that if you were to try, like Neil has written to me saying that they are contemplating a few small pilot herbicide applications in 2026. If this is to go ahead in any part of Area E, then I would be asking Nelson Hydro to notify me personally as the director as well, if that's possible.
I think we can commit to that, Cheryl, thank you. Okay, there's some people with their
Thank you.
hands up earlier. Okay,
Scott, thank you for arranging this again and your patience. I'm on there, Beggs Road. I think your crew's already been through, and as I recall, the community notice was just a block. We're gonna be here. And one morning I woke up and a tree was coming down off of my property. So that's how much notice there was, but I have a different question. I'm fine with that. I wonder, you can see there's a lot of community here who support the idea of doing better than just what the regulation is asking you to do. Why does Nelson Hydro not seize the opportunity to be a leader in doing something different? Checking off the box. And at the beginning of the last meeting, you said to us, this was a First Nations Indigenous-led consultation. Now, in the subject area of allyship, we have been asked to protect our waterways, to protect native plants, to cherish the water as a live being. Why can't Nelson Hydro and their consultants reflect this in their plan? Be a leader forward rather than Ottawa, which is so distant from us, allowing them to dictate what our norm should be. It feels like if the United Nations and their health organization says this pesticide is dangerous, should not be applied anywhere near human beings, You would take that on board and say, okay, I'm with them. Is there no opportunity? Maybe there isn't. And this is my lack of understanding of how bureaucracy sometimes functions. Is there no opportunity to be a leader, to simply say, our community feels that this type of application no longer should be allowed, given the international standard set by many other countries, signed at FAO and other places that this should not be used? Could we not lead rather than fall?
Okay, so for the online folks that may not have heard that, I'm gonna summarize by saying, you know, the question is, why can't Nelson Hydro be a leader in its pest management processes as opposed to just meeting the minimum standard? And I think that's a great question. And my short answer is, we're a small team. There's only 19 people that run all of Nelson Hydro. And 3/4 of those are the guys that are out on the poles in the dark in the middle of the night trying to do that. So we have to be very selective in terms of, you know, where we put our energy. And we get that feedback from the customers about what priorities we should be having. You know, we get direction from city council. We invite the RDK directors to participate in our, you know, annual planning and budgeting process. And, you know, the messages that we've been hearing lately have been costs and reliability. Up until this notice about updating our pest management plan, I had received very little, if any, feedback to say this is important and you should be focusing on it. So we were just treating it, as I said at the beginning, we were treating this as an administrative procedure that we just needed to make sure that we got compliance so that we can continue operating and maintaining our aging infrastructure, keeping the reliability, and meeting our customer service needs. Okay, sure. Yeah. Follow-up question.
In what you said, you are again just putting the responsibility back onto the regulatory agencies that have told you what to do. What I'm asking, it costs money to hire those consultants, most certainly. If I am able to read the UN documents on what is globally understood as poison, I'm sure your office could do that as well. And I am sure that, as you say to me now, or to us all, that there is opportunity to lead by example and change some of these mandates, or at least question them in a productive way by proving you can do otherwise, would help a lot of the water courses and the other communities around here. Why not try that? I understand you only have so many man hours, but you had to pay the consultants too, right? That you hired.
Absolutely, we did.
Okay, so
But we did not ask them to go above and beyond. We just said, we need to meet this regulation. Please do so. And I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I think for the online people, it was just sort of a continuation of the same question. So I'm going to move on to the next comment. So Jillian, anybody online that wants to contribute?
Yes, we have Becky Miller, who's raised her hand. Just give me a moment to unmute her. There we go. Becky, go ahead. You can unmute yourself now. Turn your mic on. Maybe Becky, not sure how to do that on her side, but yeah, it's Becky, if you can hear me, it's a microphone symbol, and when it's off, there's a line through it, and you click it to turn, take the line off and turn it on.
Great, Jillian. While she's working on that, maybe I'll just take a
Sure.
question here. Hopefully
Okay.
a quick one.
Sounds good.
No, at the back, I haven't heard.
there's enough people in there. We could put together a volunteer task force that all go through some of the things in this plan that I've seen there. And I think we need to allow you. I think there's these to be a lot of knowledge. And so these around what's because it would make sense that it's still be viable for you. But might need to our needs as a community control of the matter. So that's my suggestion for that could include limiting the chemical that are using. And my suggestion would be let's not say, okay, we're not going to use these anymore. Maybe we say we will use these. And in my experience, if we say we're not using that, somebody's just gonna come up with something that's not that, because it's even worse. So if we were to limit it to only these are used, then, you know, maybe this is the distance from the bodies of the ground. That would be my suggestion. I would also love a little bit.
If I could just sort of, you know, paraphrase, because I don't think anybody online would have been able to hear you. So the first part of your comments was a suggestion for the creation of volunteer task force that could provide input to Nelson Hydro to improve its PMP. And then the second item, you were making a suggestion that maybe rather than saying what not to include, but to say just what we do include, which I think is what the PMP does say. It says this is what we include.
You know, because one of your suggestions on that, so there was, you rule out certain chemicals. I'm saying rather than ruling out, like say you rule out like, well, there are plenty of other terrible pesticides out there. So it might make more sense that we're only going to use these select rather than not using these select.
Yeah, no, I got that. So she's just saying that the suggestion item number 2 or option number 2. Let's go back to the options so people can see those again. Option number 2 was that maybe we remove specific chemicals. She's saying maybe the PMP should just limit what is in there, which it is. It's just that glyphosate is one of them, as is a number of others. So basically, in the edit of the PMP, we would remove things and only include things in the PMP that we do use. So we wouldn't say anything about we don't use glyphosate. We would just say this is what we use.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to that happens for any vegetation management, especially for maybe I've had experience with this with whereas BC with absolutely zero notification. So I'm wondering, because you mentioned a couple of different scenarios that are including private property, and you said if there's no right of way, then you have to consult with the person ahead of time. But I know there are situations where there is right of way that also overlaps private property. So I'm wondering in those situations, A, would there be notification directly to that property owner in addition to just the general public notice that goes out? And B, when that notice does go out, is there an opportunity for back and forth the person to, oh, if that's the problem, let me deal with it, right? Can that be changed with that? I mean, personally, I've gone up and been like, hey, please don't cut down that 30-year-old tree. And they're like, sorry, it's too late. Here it goes. So.
Okay, so to paraphrase the question, she's asking about the consultation practice and what is the practice and what can be the practice in the future. And I'll probably let Neil take this one, but just sort of, you know, I know there's sort of like real world examples. I think you actually gone no back to back, gave one where she didn't feel like she had been notified about a tree that was on her property. I do know that our current mechanical tree trimming that, you know, our arborists go around and they do, you know, knock on doors and let people know, you know, when we're going to be working in proximity of the homes in that area, but we're not perfect. So, you know, there may be times when somebody wasn't away and, you know, or was away and we didn't notify. But maybe Neil, did you have any other comments about notification prior to either mechanical or potentially any pesticide chemical treatments?
Not really much to add. So yeah, if we're working in proximity to private property, we do go around and do door knockers, sandwich boards. We also post on our website And just to go a step further, if we do identify what we call a danger tree that is a little bit off of the right of way and potentially on homeowners' private property, we would make them aware that their tree provided a hazard to Nelson Hydro Plant, and we would offer to assist them in its removal, but we would not do that without agreement from them. I'm hoping that helps.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Jillian, did you get your online question person sorted out?
No, I was unable to reach Becky. I'm not sure, Becky, if you still have a question or not for Scott. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
I have
she's-
some more hands here. Oh, sorry, she
She
joining in?
put her hand up again, but Becky, yes, you'll have to unmute your microphone in order to speak. Yeah.
Becky might be able to type her question in as well.
Becky, are you able to submit your questions through the chat, through the Q&A form? If you're uncertain how to operate the microphone, maybe we can help you there.
Okay, Jillian, I'll let you kind of work with Becky in the background. I've got several people who are asking questions here. I know Marie's had her hand up for a while, so thanks, Marie.
Well, one of the things I find is really difficult going to the management, how that really impacts my area of life. And, you know, the whole application thing, there are pesticides already get to use, and maybe that's not enough. Maybe somebody's away and they don't see that that's actually going to be happening. And so I'm not sure how you have the whole planning process. Like imagine you have different areas, worked off different prescriptions for different areas. And I was wondering, is there any possibility for the public to have access to that? Because it would be nice to be able to go and look online and say, okay, well, this is what's going to be, what kind of treatments are going to be done in my area, whether it's mechanical or cultural or whatever, or, you know, if they're contemplating the possible use of pesticide. And in advance so that we can kind of get us some time to really to deal with that or to ask questions about it. And if it is pesticide use, what are the options? Like something else and that sort of thing. So do you prescriptions are available? I know it's small things about the price of general and make sure.
Yeah, thank you. So for the online folks, Marie was just asking if about the notification. Is there a way that we could improve our notification, make that information available well in advance, and in fact even be able to access our prescriptions sort of as we're planning them, so that people have more time to react to that. Neil, I'll let you take a shot at that. I know it's not easy. We are not a super, high tech group, and we're a small group, so our planning forecast isn't sort of like years out in advance. You saw the mapping we do, so that's kind of how we're doing. I don't know if we can make that available, but maybe Neil, you've got some comments about how we could improve our notification process.
Sure. So as Scott has mentioned, we are somewhat resource constrained. And then we do make best efforts to reach out to each individual property owner in the vicinity of where we're planning to do mechanical vegetation management. I suppose there's opportunity. We do use Voyant Alert as well in a lot of applications where there's quite a large area. We've also got social media, so potentially we could leverage Instagram and Facebook as well. We have our contractors go around with door knockers that they either speak directly to the property owners, and if they're not home, we do leave a door knocker notification on the doorknob. But that being said, there are some landlords, I'll say, or people that are out of the country or away from their properties for long periods of time. And I'm not making excuses. It's just a reality that sometimes we're not able to communicate directly with the property owners. And as far as how we could improve that, I'm open to suggestions. I think we could probably leverage a little bit more social media, but I'm uncertain exactly what that would look like.
Great, thanks, Neil, and
The owners, but it's like whoever else may be affected, like if you live in a particular area. Like I'm like a few doors down or whatever, like I would want to know that, or, you know, it would be great if you could see what the prescriptions are and what's used where, so that if it is having any kind of sort of impact on your area.
I think we can take that away as a question as to how we could improve that. As I said, the PMP is like an overarching sort of like guidelines for us to follow. So that would be, you know, a good thing for us to put in there, and then actually sort of the mechanics of how to do that. We sort of need to look at our procedures for exactly, you know, how much notification and how big of a circle you draw, or, you know, what kind of things. But thank you, Marie. That's great suggestion. Marilyn, before I get to you, I know this lady's been, she's had her hand up for a long, before you even came, she had her hand up, so I'm gonna, yeah.
Thank you for this meeting. I just want to voice my support for the woman from Larry Creek. What a great opportunity for Nelson Hydro to do better for future generations. If what we're hearing from Susan is that there's, you know, limits like 2 meters from bodies of water, like you guys you could make a difference, you could be leaders. That would be just a tremendous thing for you guys to focus on. And generation thing is just a small group, but what a great way to be an environmental leader and to make the generation.
Those people online that may not have heard, so she was seconding sort of the comments earlier about Nelson Snyder being a leader in our pest management plan. So thank you, Paul.
So then my question is, why not just use chemicals in your facilities, in your substations? And put in your management plan that is the only place you use chemicals is in your substations.
That would be option 3.
Chemical treatments, not entirely.
Entirely.
I agree, as this man said here, to the importance of doing it in the substations. I get that. So maybe that's the only place you use these chemicals. And, you know, we've got a bee man over here, you were acknowledging that he had some ideas and plans, you know, tap into those kinds of resources for pest management outside of the facilities. And then the only place that chemicals are being used are in a fenced area, and they're not near water, animals, gardens, people, and that could be in your plan.
Awesome, thank you. And please, now, Jillian, anybody on the line ready to ask a question yet?
Not at this time, Scott.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna go to the back there. Thank you.
Right, but really there is nothing like schools and parks and loving spaces from playing in the pest management. I didn't find anything that you would not play in schools. I mean, it's not specified, so how can we make sure that it's here? And my second question is, I think there is something that says you will have a pre-treatment inspection before you would spray pesticide. Like what should be the kind of timeline you would have for that? Like when would it happen? How long before? And would we be aware of what this inspection would be? Because, for example, I have days where we use a surface spring, and I'm pretty sure it's not in any municipal records or anything. So I need to know when we do an inspection along the report, so we can tell you, oh, by the way, you're not aware, but there is a spring here and we use it, and that's too close to it. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try and summarize for the online folks. So the first question was, does the pest management plan include exclusions for parks and schools and things like that? And then the other one was about the pre-treatment inspections to kind of look at the area and determine it. So I can't imagine us ever, spraying in a park or school or anything like that. But we could take a look and see if there's some language that we could improve in the plan that specifically made that clear. I thought there was, but I'm not looking at it right now. And in terms of the pre-treatment inspection, I don't think it gives us any guidelines as to how far in advance. As I said, we haven't done this, so this isn't something that we have a procedure for yet. But I would expect we would do it similar to the way our mechanical vegetation management would be, where our arborist goes out, months in advance, takes a look at where the areas that need to be done. Physically looking, he looks at every tree. So we would be looking at every stream, everything like that, and try and identify, where there may be issues, looking to see if there's, an AP area in the back or an active farm or things like that that would say, okay, this isn't a good place. But again, we're not doing any widespread treatment of our rights of way in any way, shape, or form. Anything that we would do would be very, very targeted. As I said, backpack sprayers going around to each individual plant or injecting into stumps or those kinds of things. That's what the plan says. We're not doing any broad spraying. So I hope that helps you understand. Give me a second, Susan. I'm gonna get some other people first. Jillian, anybody online?
No, Scott, nothing online.
Okay, great. Right behind Susan. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to follow. A lot of people think Nelson should have 70,000. I definitely did a research on other jurisdictions in Montreal. There's stuff being done, but I think the question about it, I like the idea of some, but I also know that there needs to be some kinds of funding and things to facilitate that and keep it going. Did you envision some, I know you can't, I want to respect the staff hours that you have, but could you envision some energy going to help facilitate a citizens task force to come forward and look at how the current PMP can be improved? And secondly, could you envision maybe going after some funding to support that process, just administrative funding essentially from Columbia Trust and whatever? So that citizen task force could actually be effectual and not just a bunch of people throwing out great ideas that nothing ever happened.
Okay, so just to summarize, suggestion or seconding sort of the suggestion of a citizen task force and making the suggestion that we should try and seek funding, say outside of our current budget and rate making that might support that additional environmental effort to try and make Nelson Hydro a leader in this area. Is that a fair summary of your suggestion?
Or a question for you, if you envision Hydro doing those two things.
I can. I'm always a little hesitant. In fact, it came up in our brainstorming. We're like, oh, well, maybe we could get a whole bunch of people. And we're like, oh, that's a lot of work. So I can envision it. Whether we can fit it into our work plan for the year to actually sort of be able to, keep the lights on and do all these extra things is another question. So maybe that's where the funding piece, where we could actually get someone who knows this stuff, who could facilitate that kind of an engagement that would then input into the PMP. But thank you, super. I'm going to go to people who have not. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Nice there.
Not at all. Always love questions from you.
Okay. For other people who have not had a chance to meet me, and that's probably 95% of you here, my name's Mimi. I'm a ratepayer in the urban part of Nelson. I call it Bogus Town. And I want to ask you a question. For your 19-member crew people, or is this including your management?
That includes me in the case of, yeah.
Well, I think you're in management. CEO that you are. Anyway, so are you, having any apprentices from the, Selkirk College, electrical program?
That doesn't seem to be a related question.
I know, like, the same
Uh,
question.
yeah.
I'm
So
trying
we
to
do
figure out.
not, we do not have an active apprenticeship program other than we do bring in EITs and engineers in training, or, co-op engineering students, but not related to pest management. So if you got a question related to pest management.
I told you it'd be a strange question. So, Selkirk College is an asset in this region, and one of its slogans is Selkirk Innovates. Are you aware that there's a nuclear training facility, testing facility here in this area?
So the comment is am I aware if there's a nuclear training facility in the area? And the answer is no, I'm not aware, and I
Okay.
don't think it's relevant to pest management.
No,
So
it's
maybe
okay, that's good.
focus.
Anyway, so Selkirk College Innovates, that means they're looking at research. So they're just below the level of being a university as far as research goes. And I would highly recommend that this particular subject be put forward to Selkirk College for consideration for research, because we're not the only community looking at this topic. And Health Canada sometimes has to receive information from the bottom up.
Excellent, thank you. Make sure we'll get that. That's a great suggestion. We do work with Selkirk College quite a bit. We've got them working on GIS for our urban forest right now. And then on Friday, I just was interviewed by one of their PhDs who wanted to talk about the vegetation management program. So we are working on that, and we do have a good relationship with Selkirk. So
Thank you.
All right. Jillian, anybody? Line?
Yes. Yes, we have two questions. Tatiana, I'll read it out, asks, considering the toxicity of glyphosate, emerging evidence of how harmful it is to people, animals, and insects, and the opposition to its use within the community, and the fact that it hasn't been used only twice by Nelson Hydro in the last 10 years, wouldn't it make sense to rule its use out altogether? Even if it's more labor intensive and therefore costly, 2 occasions in 10 years cannot be that expensive. Let's do the right thing and ban all use of glyphosate, sorry, I can't pronounce that very well, in the Kootenays.
Okay, that's an excellent comment, and yeah, I think it's captured in our in our 3 options there. So looking for, we're getting close to the end, so I just want to remind people that we do want people to provide us input. I mean, we're collecting what has been discussed here today, but we also have our Let's Talk forum. It allows you to ask questions. It allows you to make comments. We encourage you to go in there. There's a voting poll. You can vote on one of these. If you want, if you've got a different option that is listed here that we've talked about, or you really like something that you heard here today, please go in there and make a comment in there, because we will gather all that information as we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with all this feedback from our customers. So really appreciate it if everybody had a chance to jump in there. And I think I'm gonna just maybe take 1 or 2 questions. I'm looking at Axel, who's, yeah, Axel's wants to make a comment here.
Okay, so I'm actually not a ratepayer. I live in Castlegar, but I'm the regional bee inspector. I help people with their honeybees. And looking at it from that point of view, what I've come across in the past, Fortis was a long list of chemicals. And there was a phone number at the bottom. I called it. It was someone in Langley, but it was the contractor who was in charge. And I have to actually give them credit. They said they have to make that long list just in case they use one of them. But they were not going to use any of them in our area. And in fact, the guy came, a contractor came and knocked on my door and said, look, this is where we're gonna be working, but we're only doing mechanical. And I said, well, you know, I can let you know where the beehives are. And if you could then talk to the beekeeper and talk to them. That's point number one. So I think, and also in the East Kootenays, it was the railroads. They were spraying along the railroads. But they were, again, helping in the sense that if we let them know where the beekeepers were, they were going to make sure that they were 2 kilometers on either side of the beehives. They were going to do mechanical, not chemical. Okay. The other option that you should be aware of, some of you probably are, in Passmore, there's an outfit called Elk Root Conservation Farm. And Kate, who's the head lady there, is setting up what's called the Pollinator Highway Project. And this is something that the group could think about and say, okay, along this particular stretch, we're going to try and get rid of the plants that are invasive and replace them with native plants instead that don't grow very high and don't need to be managed. Okay.
Yeah.
When we talk about invasives, I'm actually batting for the wrong team. I'm sorry. Because first of all the invasive plants like knotweed, our bees love them. But then on the other hand, the honeybee is also an invasive. It arrived 400 years ago with the pilgrims, right? The natural bees here are bumblebees, etc. So anyway, yeah.
But we're still talking pollinators, right?
Well, we're talking pollinators in general, yes. And there are 400 species of bees in BC, right? And the honeybee is just a pollinator, but it's been naturalized over 400 years, but it is not a native. So anyway, I have some cards for Elk Root. If you have never been there or don't know anything about it, I give you a card. And they're in New Zealand at the moment on a holiday. But if you ever go there in the summertime, it's unbelievable. Kate has over 200 different kinds of plants growing in their place, and they really push the native fauna, fauna's animals. Right? So something to get to know if you've never been there. And also, I don't want to put any extra work on Kate, but she was a lawyer in New York and she knows how to apply for grants. Right?
Wonderful. Thank you,
So if
Axel.
you have any questions, I'll be around for a few minutes after.
Yeah, excellent. And Jillian, was that clear enough for everybody? Do I need to summarize?
No, that was quite clear. Yes, it was very well understood.
I used to be a teacher. I talk a lot.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm very cognizant of the time that we're at the end of our time. There's still a couple of hands up. So if people need to leave, I will not be offended. I'm also available. I will flip this. Our contact information is there. So if you need to get a hold of myself or Neil or Jillian to provide input, please do. And we look forward to getting some feedback from everybody on that. So if you need to leave, feel free to grab a cookie on the way out. Looks like there's still a few left. And I will continue to answer a few more questions here for those who are willing and interested in staying. But if you're leaving, please just try and be a little bit quiet. I know you've got one more question.
Just a very quick comment that nobody has mentioned, and it's very dear to my heart. Let's hear for the Western toad and the painted turtles that we're trying to save in Harrop at our wonderful Harrop wetland.
Okay, a shout out for the Western toad and the painted turtle.
We don't want to be spraying close to the wetland.
Copy. Got it. No spraying by the wetlands. I think that's pretty clear in the IPMP right now, but we'll make sure that the language is there.
Wetlands are very.
You had a question or hand up.
Wondering what happened to the power line. When you walk on the power line, is it controlled by cutting back or what's the back taxpayers or how is our vegetation controlled power lines?
We're not doing any power line spraying currently. So as we've said several times, we're not doing that. So everything we're doing to manage our vegetation right now is mechanical, and we will continue to do that. The only discussion is if we want to try something that in the chemical area in very, very specific and controlled areas. So let me just, Jillian, is there anybody that's still, I know you said you have two questions and we only got one.
Yes, there is, Becky Miller has a question. She says on reference to page 33, section 5.5 states, where possible, areas containing food plants shall be located and mapped as a pesticide-free zone. Her question is, I'm curious as to what the procedure is to determine where these properties properties or areas are located, and two, how many meters from these pesticide-free zones would spraying or vegetation management occur?
Okay, Jillian, just, for some reason, my battery is not being charged right now, but so I'm worried that I'm gonna lose you. Maybe it
Okay.
was timed out from 5 o'clock or something, but, Neil, do you want to answer that question? I know we don't have our GIS up and running yet, but, you know, it's a long-term vision to try and get these kind of things in a layer, but, I know we don't have a process, but maybe Neil, you could talk about what you might do to map that.
Well, you're absolutely correct. So in the future, we would like to leverage our GIS system and put layers of potential areas of non-treatment zones outside of what is currently listed in the pest management plan. But sorry, what was the question again?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, just
What is the procedure to determine where the areas containing food and plants to be located and mapped? What would the procedure be? And I think Neil answered that question. And then second question is how many meters from these pesticide-free zones would spraying or management occur? She's looking for some setback information.
Oh, well, just for my mind, we would work with the vendor. Were we going to hire a herbicide or a pesticide management vendor? We would consult with them and the property owner, and with a lot of well, we would err on the side of safety, obviously, and either just stay away from it entirely or ensure that the setback was more than it needed to be with consultation with the vendor. And we would need agreement from the property owner as well.
okay. So Jillian, I think I'm gonna lose you pretty quick here. My battery. I'm gonna have to switch over and plug my computer in. So I think we'll terminate the online questions at this point. There were still a couple of hands here, so I'm willing to sort of mill around and answer questions with the group just in the hall here. But really, really appreciate everybody coming out, providing your input. Do make your voices heard on online or email one of us. And Casey and Neil have been taking notes, so we'll collect everything we've got here and try and make a better plan going forward. So thank you very much for everybody, and open to individual questions here now that we're wrapping things up. I'm going to turn this off too. So.
Okay, I'm going to step away, so thank you, everyone.
And thank you, everyone. I will end recording now.
You had a question, Roland, I think first.